For the slides, they are going to be pictures of my son, Rory, and I during his first 7 months. I show these to give you a joyful perspective on fatherhood. Caregiving images like these of a father and young child involved in relational and care-filled exchanges are not the standard images we commonly see, and it is a good way to frame my presentation on Reimagining Fatherhood, a joyful exploration of non-normative becomings. The families I'll talk about are non-normative in their allocation of care roles and unsettling the breadwinner housewife trope common in the US and Canada. My sample includes white cis men across disability identification, immigration status, and geographical location. Do you remember the first time you heard of a non-birthing parent going on parental leave? As someone who grew up in the US, the first time I heard of this was when I was trying to book an appointment with my dermatologist about 6 years ago in Colorado. I reached out to their office and found out that he was on parental leave for 3 months and that I had to schedule a follow-up with another doctor at the practice. At first, I was mildly annoyed at having to meet with a new doctor for a non-life-threatening but very inconvenient condition. But once this initial frustration passed, I was surprised that this was even possible for new fathers. Prior to this, I had only known about birthing parents going on leave, and even then, the longest period I knew about was around 30 days. Our son Rory was not even a remote possibility during this period. My partner and I both worked full-time and could not afford to have a child, nor did we want to, without the space to create a relational parenting approach. It was only about 2 years ago that we started to discuss our options of trying to have a child. By the time we left Colorado to move to Canada in fall of 2021, there was no guaranteed paid parental leave. Side note, as of January 2024, there is now a 12-week paid leave policy, and this is starting to trend in the right direction in some other states in the US, with still a long way to go. In June of 2024, we welcomed our child, Rory Nicolas, into the family. As my spouse is a doctoral candidate and holds jobs in contract work, they were not eligible for paid leave. After reviewing our options, I decided to take 35 weeks of paid leave offered by the Canadian government. While not enough time, we had to balance our financial needs with our desire to center a relational approach in our kin network. One joyful moment that came up with Rory was when he was 4 months old and Julia returned to work 2 days a week. I struggled the first week trying to get him to feed from a bottle as he was exclusively breastfed, and we really had a difficult time trying to make things work. He cried himself to sleep that first week, and so I reached out to the public health nurse here, and she gave me some advice and showed me a video of how to teach an infant, newborn, how to feed from a sippy cup. And so I was able to try that out with Rory, and we were able to do that the following week with great success. And that was really a moment, one of the first moments where Rory communicated what he needed, and I was able to fulfill what he was requesting. So that was a moment of joy between Rory and I. As is the case with other fathers I have spoken to, my upbringing impacts how I work towards providing a different model for my family. If there is one memory that captures why I'm trying to do things differently, it is my father proudly saying that he never changed a diaper for any of his 3 children. This seemingly odd thing to admit inspired me to change a majority of Rory's diapers and to be a more involved caregiver. A couple of standout diaper stories came during a recent conference that Julie and I attended in Edinburgh. So during one of the sessions, Rory had a massive blowout in which Julia was presenting and I was holding him. So I had to run downstairs from the conference floor to the facilities. I ended up having troubles finding the right changing room. A facilities person helped me out, but I was, had one hand holding him while the blowout was spilling through. I could only use one hand to open the door. And then we had another couple of blowouts on the way back from Edinburgh to Canada, where it was an eventful trip filled with a lot of blowouts, but it was just another case of, even though it was stressful and crazy in the moment, we can find joy and learn lessons learned from those experiences. My parents brought my 2 sisters and I to the U.S. when I was 4 years old from Venezuela. I grew up in a traditional household where my father, as a primary breadwinner, was not involved in caregiving. I can recall many times during my childhood where I wondered where my dad was and if he had just disappeared at work for a number of years. A similar sentiment came up when I talked with other dads about their caregiving experiences growing up. They expressed a desire to be more involved than their fathers. When I began my 8-month parental leave with Rory, this journey started out lonely because I did not know of any other non-birthing parent who went through this process. As we near the end of my leave period, coming up next month, I have had the opportunity to speak with other dads who currently or previously were on parental leave, as well as fathers in non-normative caregiving roles. I was originally going to do a critical autoethnography, reflecting on my family's experience pursuing a joyful, non-normative approach to care. I decided to adapt this project to incorporate the many stories I was hearing from dads in my network about their caregiving roles. Initially through informal conversations that I had with non-birthing parents around our community in southwestern Ontario, this developed into me doing semi-structured interviews with fathers in current or previous caregiving roles. I highlight 4 interviews today, including my own. What I heard and got excited about was these different experiences of caregiving that challenged the traditional breadwinner roles and representations of the father as absentee or neglectful. For example, fathers pausing their careers for caregiving roles while their partners took on the primary earning responsibility. During 2 interviews, non-birthing parents expressed and were supported by their partners to be stay-at-home caregivers before children were added to the relationship. Although they only performed this role temporarily while on parental leave, both shared that taking on further caregiving at home was something their family was open to. Fluidity and adapting to employment prospects was a common theme, with special consideration for the birthing parent to not lose ground in their careers. Often, and perhaps unsurprisingly, animals cropped up. Fathers I spoke to, and this is true in my family as well, reminisce about the challenges of negotiating boundaries between cats, dogs, and babies, as well as the joys of watching their furry kin bond with children. In my family, my spouse takes care of the dogs in the morning, taking them outside for pets and play. When this happens, I snuggle with Rory upstairs as he rolls towards me, occasionally whacking me with his fists or lifting both legs and slamming them down in a playful manner. I have heard stories of fathers during COVID-19 that took on caregiving roles while their partners left home to work, of dads taking parental leave for the first time with their second child and wishing they could have done it with their first. These decisions are difficult, they aren't always supported by our current structures, even with parental leave, but fathers often note they are worth it. What all these stories share is a desire by dads to be more involved in caregiving. One father talked about leaving their cell phone at home to avoid distractions and documenting his child's growth through the use of an old-school camcorder, his passion for cultivating in-the-moment experiences with his child. Another father is taking 2 additional months of unpaid leave after their paid leave ends to spend the summer break with their family. Since their career will have them working most summers for the foreseeable future, they are taking this opportunity to hopefully make lasting memories through camping, hiking, and family bonding. One dad I spoke to, who immigrated from the Ukraine, pointed out the difficulties of living in an individualistic country compared to a collectivist nation. There is more flexibility with monthly expenses, and not everything was tied to employment. Unfortunately, there is no denying that these opportunities are not feasible for most families today. But what would our communities look like if this was accessible to everyone? What if we valued caregiving as much as career or academic achievements? In Canada and the US, more fathers today are contributing to unpaid work at home and expressing higher interest in taking an active and involved role in childcare. There are non-birthing caregivers out there who navigate parenting journeys which defy societal expectations of what it means to be a father. These experiences can be painful, especially when social and work networks fail to value caregiving, but they can also be immensely joyful. Within our current systems, there is a push and pull from competing institutions. Ultimately, these experiences by non-birthing parents are still influenced and impacted by current societal norms. Through alternative parenting models, we can unsettle harmful capitalist traditions and encourage a variety of healthier family identities. I think about my parents today as I finish changing Rory's diaper, singing to him as he giggles and coos back at me. We'll be going for a walk as a family soon, our 3 dogs, my partner, and Rory, kicking and babbling as he watches the world move past him in bright hues. The cat will stay home, sitting on the changing table until we return, and she can snuggle up with Rory, the pair practicing soft paws as they learn how to live together. Joy for me comes from the physical contact with Rory. I struggled the first month of his life trying to cope with all the changes to our family, my identity, and the uncertainty of the future. Through physical activities like tummy time, diaper changes, and play, we were able to build a bond that was not always there. Being in the moment, staring into his initially blue, now slightly green eyes, I am reminded of how special this time is, and how important physical contact is to our bonding. Although my parental leave will end next month, I plan to continue to interview non-birthing parents about their caregiving experiences. Through these conversations, I have been able to connect with dads about the joys of fatherhood. While we struggle to navigate through unsupportive systems and outdated expectations, by sharing stories like the ones I have mentioned today, we can support future parents in exploring alternative, joyful, and non-normative becomings.